Welcome back to the Deduction Desk. We're going to do things actually a little bit differently today. We get constant conversations, constant questions about real estate. What opportunities are there in real estate? Today, we're going to be focusing on real estate specifically.
Yeah, so, and we've been thinking about who to bring in to talk about this for a little while. One of the first things when we, first talked about the tax codes is right now there's this huge benefit with real estate as well, especially if you're in Airbnbs or if you're just a real estate professional. And the other day I was on the way to some event in the city and I had an Uber driver who just kept asking questions. And one of the things he started asking me after I told him I was an accountant was, what can I do to start making more money? And I said, I don't know, go look into real estate. That's a popular thing that I see people doing. He goes, well, I can't go into real estate. I don't have any money, right? And I was like, oh, wait, I have the perfect guy because we have today Shariq, who is one of our longtime clients, one of my good friends, and he started his whole real estate empire basically with almost nothing. Is that correct, Shariq?
Yeah.
What would you say you started with?
When I first got started, I saved some money up from my job that I was working, so I had less than $20,000 when I first got started back in 2012.
What were you doing?
I worked as a financial analyst.
Oh, nice.
So I did that for about a year and a half out of college. Went to business school for finance, did that for a year and a half. Met someone who was in the real estate business, and I sort of just learned from him and went from there. He asked me, how much money do you have? I said, probably about $18,000 at the time. Right. And he said, we can work with that and let's get started.
So what drove you to go into real estate? Like, was it, your natural understanding of that world being a financial analyst, and then you decided, look, I want to try it, or someone told you to try it?
I think, frankly speaking, I had no idea what I was going to do. So I was looking into a variety of different businesses, convenience stores, laundromats. Real estate was one of them, and I wasn't too sure which direction to go, but finding the right mentor really assisted me with finding the proper path.
Too? Your mom was like...
Yes. So So my mom and one of her good friends worked at the same company. So she said, hey, why don't I introduce you to her son who is in real estate business? So I didn't know what that meant. I thought that meant being a realtor. So at that time, I was fairly naive and there wasn't as much information out there at the time with what wholesaling is, what rehabbing properties is, what development is. So I just thought of it as being a realtor, and it's not something that I really wanted to do because I wanted to be in regards of more so the ownership of real estate. And she said, no, he owns real estate. He buys properties, he fixes them up, he sells them. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like very intriguing. Yeah. So I went out to one day to grab sushi with him, and he sort of just started teaching me the ropes.
And so what, you just went and bought a property like right off the bat?
Yeah, what was the first property you bought? What was the experience like?
Yes. So my first, back in 2012, I was probably learning for a good 6 months to a year of just trying to figure out how this business works. And then along with his mentorship and teaching me the ropes a little bit. So the first deal that I actually bought was through a sheriff sale auctions. So the same way where you can go to an auction for cars and bid on cars, you can go to a sheriff sale auction and bid for properties. So there was a property which was in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and at that time it was $86,000, and you have to put down a 20% down payment when you buy the property. So you go into this room, there's probably 20, 30 people there at that time, and we see a property. To my knowledge, it's a good property, it's undervalued, and if we get it at a certain price, we'll be able to sell this property to another investor and make a little bit of money.
Wow.
So you put down that full $18,000 you had?
Yes. So that first deal we bought for $86,000. So we put down, what is that, about $18,000 as a down payment, 20%.
The whole nut's gone.
Yeah. The whole thing is gone. So I have nothing left.
Okay.
You have 30 days to close on the property. So
now you got to figure out how to get the rest.
Yeah. So it could be like a high risk, high reward business, at least when it comes to auctions.
Yeah.
I have 30 days to close on the property. But what he taught me is that once you have control over the property, you can assign this to a different investor and they'll pay you your $18,000 back. They'll pay you something called an assignment fee. So it's basically a finder's fee that, hey, you found this property and I'm going to pay you, let's say $10,000 on top of what you put in, and then they'll close on the property with their own funds. That's exactly what happened. So
you made like almost 50% return?
Yeah. So we probably made on that deal about 20,000 net. So we put up 18,000, made around 18, 20,000, and I split that with my mentor. So he assisted me with finding the property. I put up the money. He found the buyer, showed me the whole ropes, and then we split the profits 50-50 from there. And at that time, I'm 23 years old. I'm just like, hey, this is pretty cool. I made $9,000 in less than a month. It was more than what I would make monthly at my job at the time. And I said, how do I consistently keep doing this?
So you go, you assign this deal, you almost double what you started with. You obviously only get half of the profit,
right?
But you know that you basically do 100% return on this first assignment. Did you then keep assigning properties?
Yes.
What was the?
Yeah. So we just kept rinsing and repeating. We went back to the auctions. Found undervalued properties. He had a very good buyer pool, so he knew who would buy these properties. So we did that a few different times in regards of assignment deals, and just went from there. Started building up my capital. But what my goal was I sort of wanted to move into renovating properties, so buying properties, fixing them up, and flipping them. Because what I saw was that a lot of the investors that we were selling to, they would buy these properties for, let's say, $86,000, fix it up, and then sell it and make huge profits. So I said, how do I get to the position that they're into?
So you kind of bridge them short term so that they can do that renovating side and make a lot more.
Right. So you find the deal for them, they end up fixing it up, selling it, and
So now you said I want to graduate to fixing it up.
yes.
So at the time you're doing the analyst job at the same time.
No, so I actually went all in.
Okay, so once the 18 was in, you quit and you're like, I'm moving forward.
Quit my job pretty much in 2012.
That was it. You made that first $9,000, and you're like,
Yes.
I'm done with this.
Yeah, no, I quit my job before the $9,000, probably about 6 months before. So I had no income coming in.
Right.
But I figured, I'm like, hey, if I want to take a risk, it's easier to take a risk as you're younger rather than as you get older, right?
You can only lose so much.
Yes.
Do you think that was helpful because it really helped you hyper focus on making sure that was successful?
Yes, and the opportunity cost was a $50,000 salary, right? And I knew that as a backup, I can always go back, and I have a degree in finance and go work a job. So instead, I'm like, hey, let me take the risk now, especially with someone's guidance, and try to learn this business and try to make it happen.
So would you recommend, do you think there's specific character traits that you have that put you in the position to make that successful? Or do you think, because we're not telling people to quit your job and do exactly what he did and you're going to be in a great spot, but would you recommend people getting into real estate kind of in this direction? Or would you say probably a little bit better for them to have a little bit more money saved up?
I would say in the ideal scenario, if you do have some money saved up, you have the proper mentor, you have the proper education, and you still work a job while doing this on the side, is probably the best route to go. I think my route was probably unique in the way that I went about it.
Right.
But for the average person, there's risk on the table. You may have a family, you may have kids. You can do real estate on the side. And as you see that income start snowballing and you're making more, eventually you can make the decision, do I want to leave my job and do this full time, if it ever gets to that point.
It gets kind of balances out.
I tell a bunch of my buddies, I'm like, hey, look, if you have one kid, have at least one rental property. You have two kids, have two rental properties. You can do a flip on the side, and you make $100,000 at your job, do a flip on the side and make $30,000, $40,000 extra for the year. That can be your vacation money. That can be additional income that you want to provide for your family.
Is that a lot of work, you think, flipping a house while you're doing a full-time job?
I personally don't think so.
Like, you would need a contractor, right? Someone who you can rely on that's actually going to get the work done.
Right.
You have to have a vision of what you want it to look like.
Yes. I think of it
as... Shariq's
as...
also like an animal. He like wakes up at like 5 a.m. and goes to the
Well,
gym
that's
every
a good
day.
thing for people to know, right? Like, you're not going to be waking up at 7:30, rushing to get to work at 8 o'clock, and then leaving at 3 and then doing nothing for the rest of the day and become successful from this capacity. It takes
for
more
me,
effort.
sometimes I think of it that I work 0 hours because I love it, but other times I think of it's just on my mind 24/7. My wife will say that I'll be on the computer 11 p.m. at night, but I just think of it as fun.
It consumes you, yeah. I mean, but that's I see that consistent trait in everyone who's successful.
Yeah.
Right.
And also, I feel like there's always like you have to be looking at the next step, right? He started with, let's look at the assignments, and then he's already looking at, I want to do the rehabs. And then I know from working with Shariq, as soon as he started doing the rehabs, he started telling me, Sagar, all I want to do is have a portfolio of cash flow, right? It's always like looking at the next thing. What's the next best thing, right? Then it's not just doing the thing and flipping it, but it's holding on to it, looking at all the appreciation that's happening with the property, keeping the cash flow. And I remember him telling me like very early on, there was a certain amount of money he needed to make a month. And he was like, if I can make this much in cash flow, I'm good. I don't need more than this. I don't need, I really can't get by with less than this. And that was it. It wasn't like, I want to make $10 million a year.
Right.
It was, I want to make this much, an achievable number that fit his lifestyle and his goals and what he was looking for, and then buying properties to get to that point.
And then it grew from there.
Right. I think you do need to have some foresight to be able to potentially reverse engineer the whole process. So if you start off with a signing, at least my journey was a signing to fixing and flipping to owning rental properties to also being a lender for other people, which I believe is almost fully passive. So I sort of constructed a way to get there where now we own rental properties and we do a lot of lending, and it comes in fairly passively every single month, and reverse engineer that process. So I said, hey, if I can, and this back then, I'm like, hey, if I can make $3,000 in passive income, that'll be great. And I thought that was huge at the time. And then, you graduate from there.
That number grows as you go.
Right.
Do you still work with the coach that you started with?
I was just talking to him yesterday. We're going to be at the same real estate event tomorrow. I still think him as a mentor and a friend.
But you bridged off from partnering with him,
yes,
at some point.
Yes, but what I love about real estate is that you can partner with different people on different deals. So a deal may come across my table, and one of my business partners who I think will provide value to this deal, I can bring them in and be like, hey, do you want to partner with me on this one? Or there may be another deal where I may approach you and be like, hey, Joe, do you want to partner on this deal?
Right.
So that I love real estate because you have the autonomy to be able to move in different directions.
And does that become complicated from a tax perspective?
No, you're just doing separate LLCs for each one, you're doing separate operating agreements for each one.
Different ownership percentages, they sell the property, the tax is split.
Yeah, no, not as long as it's, set up as a separate LLC for each property, covers you from a liability perspective as well as a tax perspective.
Right. Like if you had to give someone an example of like the biggest challenge you ran into when it comes to real estate, like what would that have been?
Oof, I think all of it can be a challenge, and dealing with just people in general is a challenge. Dealing with contractors can be a challenge. I've definitely lost my shirt a couple of times when it comes to dealing with contractors, and lost a lot of money, whether you call it maybe even potentially being stolen from you, where
they start the project and they don't finish it.
They're taking other jobs, you're wondering where they are.
Right.
A month goes by, they're not showing up, you're calling them, they're ghosting you. So I think that's a common trend in real estate. Sometimes you almost have to learn through the school of hard knocks, and you develop your team over time. But I actually think of it as a good thing, because every challenge that came, including that one, you learn how to mitigate the risk for the next time you take over this deal.
Right. So if you have a consistent contractor that is reliable, like that's someone you want to keep with you, especially if you're going to flip houses.
Yes, key part of the team, for sure. Your attorney, your accountant, your contractor, wholesalers that you deal with, private money lenders, people who lend you money on these deals, all a very critical part of the business.
So I was thinking, what can we bring to the people that have, been watching the videos, right? And I think we've talked about the Airbnbs, right? We have two segments of clients that ask for real estate advice. We have the guy who's making a lot of income, or the gal who's making a lot of income, and they want to add some depreciation and take losses, and they've seen online that if you get these rental properties, you can take depreciation. Some of our other videos will show and tell you that you either have to be a real estate professional or you need to be in a short-term rental in order to take those deductions. And then we have the other side, which is kind of the folks you're talking, like how you started, where they're saying, hey, I'm not really super happy with the direction my career is going in. I have a little access to real estate, or I've done a little bit of real estate deals and I really like that, and I want to take the jump and become a full-time real estate person. I think one of the best things about you from working with you is your analysis and the way you're, look at each property that we come across. So I thought something that we could do that's fun and informative is let's take a look at a couple of properties, things that are available for sale, and see what your opinions are on how you would vet the property. Maybe we pull up a couple comps and see if it's a good deal or not, and come up with it on the fly.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And I mean, are you more in long-term or short-term when it comes to real estate?
Combination of both. So that was going to be my question, where we analyze the deal, and there's different ways to analyze a deal depending on what your long-term strategy is. So if it's a buy and hold, and let's just say it's a small multifamily property, a 2 to 4 unit, you want to see, what kind of cash flow can this kick out. Versus a whole separate analysis would be if you're doing a fix and flip and the end buyer is a family of 4 who's looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath for their family and their dog and a backyard. So I think it's heavily determined based off of who your end buyer is going to be, and whether this is a buy and hold where you're going to rent it out to a tenant, or if it's going to be a fix and flip.
Did you favor one over the other? Like, were you like, I have no interest in doing the long-term one?
I think you need a combination of both, because one, you definitely need active income, because I see a lot of people going into real estate and they want to buy a rental property, and you may
It's
you
just
may
paying
make
the mortgage.
Yeah, you may make a couple $100, so you're not
Right.
going to quit your job getting
Right.
$10,000 a month in passive income through just buying rental properties,
Right.
because it's a very difficult way to scale. Versus if you're making solid income, whether it being at a job, you're a medical professional, you have your own business, or you can fix and flip properties and make big chunks. And what I did was use that money to buy rental properties. So my active income at the time was fixing and flipping properties, making X amount per year, and then using all those funds in buying distressed real estate that I would buy, fix up, and rent out for long-term wealth.
Yeah, I think we've always said like the best combo is a spouse that's working, making good W-2 income that can fund these projects
Right.
and fund your mortgages and be a good borrower, and a second spouse that is full-time dedicated to working. You are obviously trying to do both at the same time, but that to me is like the ideal scenario, right?
Yeah, maybe someone is a breadwinner to an extent from a household standpoint, and then the spouse has the ability to focus a lot more on this, even though the funding is coming from that main source. You can start to build it up, and then eventually have it really become full time.
And then you get the double-edged sword of the real estate professional spouse using the losses from the depreciation against the W-2 spouse's
Right.
active income. And you really get to these points where we see $200,000, $300,000 tax refunds using that strategy.
Yeah, and I think the main takeaway, obviously from this, before we start getting into researching and looking at some of that stuff, is just there's a lot of work and a lot of effort that gets put into real estate. There's a lot of pieces that need to be in place in order for you to be successful. It's not just you're going to buy one property and then all of a sudden you've made it from a real estate standpoint.
Right.
And I think that,
Or it's going to be completely headache-free.
Without it, I think in any position, right, there's always going to be a headache to some extent. It just depends on how much can you handle with the situation that you have. So we talked about getting some ideas from a research standpoint. So let's use a live example, right? So you've moved on from one property, you're going on to the next property. Where's your main source of where do you go? Where do you go to look for properties?
You can definitely look. One avenue is realtors.
Okay.
So you can go to Zillow and see, is there anything that's on the market that may
All right,
make
so
sense?
let's go to Zillow and just use an example, right? So
what's an area that you look in right now regularly?
or maybe a place you just went to.
Yeah, we can type in Bloomfield, New Jersey.
Why do you like that area? by the way?
I own a 14 unit in this area. I have a warehouse in this area. Within Bloomfield, it's grown a lot because the surrounding towns, one being Montclair, Nutley, Glen Ridge, these are all pretty
Nice
much
areas.
high income
Yeah.
towns. Yeah, very, very high income and great areas, great downtowns. They're growing. So what's happening is a lot of people from those areas are getting priced out and they're moving to Bloomfield. So the value of those properties is significantly going higher. And then along with that, the rents keep going higher as well. So it's great to be in an area where it would be amazing to be in Montclair, but some people are priced out of being in Montclair. So instead you can buy a surrounding town.
Yeah, that's a huge point.
Yes.
So regardless if it's in New Jersey or if it's in another state that you live in, try and find towns that are wealthier type of areas that the values continue to go up, and some of those neighboring areas might start to get the overflow.
Yes.
So now all the properties there might start to build up. That's a great first starting point, in my opinion, of, all right, well, where do we start? Like, because even for myself, right, like I said to my wife, let's get a rental property. Let's just get something in addition, in the even if it's retirement money in the future, it'll be passive income. I can sell it and buy another place. Why? You don't even know where to start, right? You're like, what town do you start in? And then people end up going to Glen Ridge, Nutley, Montclair, and then you're like, well, I got to buy a $900,000 house.
Yeah.
And this whole neighborhood's already developed. This might be a good opportunity where 10 years down the road, it's maybe double in value because it's, because of your conversation.
So would you look from a fix and flip standpoint then in this area? Or would it be more?
Three things that I always look for, especially when it comes to, let's just say, a rental property, is one, you want to make sure there's enough cash flow to support the mortgage and something comes in your pocket at the end of it. So that's going to require a detail analysis. Mm-hmm. Two, you want to make sure you're in an area where there's potential growth. So you have surrounding towns that are nice, or there's great school systems where there's a consistent demand. The last thing you want to do is go into an area where it takes forever to rent out, or people aren't moving there, or there's a population decline. So Bloomfield would be that type of area where I believe that because we're in a good support system of Glen Ridge and Montclair, that more people are going to move in. And lastly, at least for me personally, I always focus on value add. So those three things are really important. Cash flow. Two, 2, being in a great area with stability and population growth, and 3, value add. And what I mean by value add is you're buying a property that most likely requires renovation, so you can buy it, fix it up, and force appreciation.
Sure.
And one thing I love about real estate is you're sort of in control. You are in the driver's seat to a certain extent versus, let's say, stocks or something else, where you could do particular renovations that have high ROI and force the value to go up in the property. Or 2, if you're looking at it from an income standpoint, you can increase the income by, let's just say the previous owner wasn't charging enough in rent for the tenants. So, and you know that, hey, this property is renting out for $1,800 per unit and it should be rented out at $2,200 per unit. So there's a little bit of a buffer there that you can keep this pushing up to increase the value.
So you'd buy the property that's already being rented out and then change the rental?
That's a possibility. My ideal scenario would be to buy a property, fix it up, and put market rents on there.
Okay,
but I've bought many properties where there are already tenants in there and they're just undervalued and they're not paying enough. And we try to do whatever we can to raise the value by increasing the rents. Or you can also try to have better management in place, like management inefficiencies from the previous owner, and you manage the property better. Along with that, you can try to reduce the expenses for whatever reason, if they were overpaying in their homeowner's insurance or they had heavy vacancy or heavy CapEx repairs. How do you mitigate that risk? And that can also increase the value of your property.
So why don't we pick one and just see how you do the analysis to see if it's a decent property or not. You could tell me to pick a different one. I just grabbed a random one.
Would you look for more of a home or a condo?
Like
or
there's a townhouse I saw over here too.
We've done it all. So we've definitely focused on condos. Actually, Hoover Ave, that first one, I own a property on Hoover Ave. So that's
one right here?
Let's click down.
All right.
Yeah. So
what do you look at here?
Actually, I own the property that's right next to this, I believe, on the right-hand side, and that's a 14 unit that I own. So it's a 3-family, 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 and a 4-family, all on one lot. And then I also have a warehouse there. So this property, a couple things right off the bat. What I like about it is that there's been a price cut. Shows that there may be some motivation for us to go in there.
Yep.
Oftentimes I go into properties and see, is there a lot of days on market? So DOM. So the higher days on market, the more motivated the seller may be.
145 days.
145 days, yeah.
So they've been waiting.
They've been waiting.
Okay.
So you may be able to go in there and
get a deal.
Yeah, get a deal. I don't want to say like make a lowball offer, but make an aggressive offer where it makes sense for you as the buyer, where if you buy this, you're feeling good. And can we look at the pictures?
Sure.
Keep going down. I want to see the interior. Oh yeah, I like this. Because this shows for you and your family.
So it's great because I looked at this and I'm like, no.
You don't want to live there? Exactly.
I ain't living there.
Yep.
So when you see this type of stuff, you go, great. This is stuff that I can renovate, stuff that I can make look a lot better.
100%. You see this old paneling there. The kitchen is old.
Carpeting.
Old LVP flooring, it looks like. This bathroom, everything. So this whole place can, if you really want, completely gut it. You can fully renovate it and make it turnkey for whoever does want to buy it, where they would be moving in there for, let's say, Joe, you and your family. We're like, oh, this is a beautiful home. You don't want to have to do anything.
Okay.
Versus going into a property like this, and then you would have to spend, who knows, a couple $100,000 fixing this whole place up to make it worthwhile for you and your family to actually live there.
Looks like there's a pretty big backyard and side yard too.
You mean if I'm the one who's going to buy it, right? I have to go in knowing that I'm going to spend the extra money.
Yeah, if you were a retail buyer. So instead, there's an opportunity for, let's say, an investor to buy this property, fix it up, and then hand it over to you on a silver platter for you and your family.
So you look at this property, right? Obviously, days on market is great. Neighborhood, street that it's on is great. Interior obviously needs a decent amount of redoing. What's the dollar amount that pops in your head that says, all right, I'm going to take this on as a project? You're going to mortgage it, I would assume, right? Or let's say you first started, maybe you'd mortgage it.
Well, yeah, if you're buying it from an investment standpoint where you want to fix and flip this property, you would buy it, get some type of lending on it, and it's not going to be your conventional lending, so it's going to be either through a hard money lender or you would raise money from private investors, let's say friends and family, who would lend you the money for the acquisition plus the renovation plus holding costs before you sell the property. So it wouldn't come fully out of your own pocket, but at the same time, you wouldn't be able to get really bank financing on this property, especially for a fix and flip deal.
What kind of down payment would you have to put down? Let's say you go in and you tell them it's been on the market for a while. I'll give you $450.
If you were to go to a hard money lender, they would give you 90% of the acquisition price and 100% of the construction. That's generally what it is. Some of them are a little bit more aggressive with it, where they'll give you more than that, 95%. But I would say 90% and 100% of construction is usually what you need. So you would need 10%. So a $450,000, $45,000 comes out of your own pocket because they want to see some skin in the game. And then along with that, the way the construction works is they're going to give you the money in draws. So if you do a $200,000 renovation, they don't want to give you the $200,000 up front. So you're going to have to put in some renovation work. They come there, inspect the property, make sure that the property was renovated to what you said it was going to be, and then they'll release that money to you. So let's say you go in there.
You spend it first and then they reimburse you on it.
Exactly.
So
that way the lender protects
How many
himself.
points would you typically expect to pay on something
I would
like
say
this?
on something like this, 11% and 2 points.
Okay,
So 2
so
points
2
on 450,000. So you would pay that up front as soon as you get the loan from the hard money lender at the day of closing. And then they would charge you 11%, which is generally paid monthly.
So that's also 2 points is 2% as well. So we can expect your cost of borrowing to be 405 times 2.
Right.
And this. So, this is obviously the interest over an entire year, right?
Yep.
So this looks like this isn't something that you would necessarily hold, but if you
But
were to hold
52,000 is what you got to clear. Right?
So this if you takes you a whole year. Let's just say it takes you a whole year to reno this, which I know Shariq would try to get it done way faster
I'd say,
than that.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say 6 months start to finish. That is, of course, over the course of a year, the 8,100 and the 44,000.
So if you did it monthly, it would be half of that, right? It'd be 25,000,
if you
27,000.
Yeah, if you did it in 6 months, which is generally what I would assume a property like this would take start to finish, it would be half that amount. So yeah, probably.
And then
around
that's what you pay
25,000.
them. You're done.
At least for the hard money lender.
In addition to the money that you're giving back from the from whatever.
you'll
they gave
owe the hard money that.
So you would pay
So-
them the $405,000, which you owe them. Along with that, if it takes half a year, another
Right.
$25,000 in interest goes to them, and then of course there's also holding
All right,
costs.
so
And
that
where do you
makes
get the money for the rehab? Where does that come from?
That comes from the hard money lender.
them.
So you can borrow more.
Yeah, they'll give you more money to borrow, just depending on what your renovation budget is. So in this case, let's say it takes $200,000, they'll release that $200,000
Do you think
to
it would take $200K to fix up this kitchen, living room?
I think it just depends what you want to do. If you want to gut this and do all new plumbing, all new electrical, all new HVAC, I'm not too sure if this property has a four-shot air central
maybe
AC. So no, not that much. But I just think it depends. No, it doesn't have four-shot air central AC. But 150,000, I would assume right off the bat. Just quickly glancing off the pictures, you want to do siding, roof, windows, floors, doors, kitchens, baths.
So this is cool. So for easy numbers, let's say they sold it to you for $500,000, right?
Right.
You know that you're going to get the lending, 90% of it. You got to put in your own down payment.
Right.
Right. And then you have the points and the interest that you're paying back on them. You finish it in 6 months. It's half of that, 52,000, and then plus whatever the down payment was that you put in. But you'll get it back as long as you sell it for $500,000, right?
Yep.
So what you really would need is to sell the property at a minimum for $525,000 after the reno.
Well, in this case, you would need more than that, because if you're getting it at $450,000 and you spend another $150,000 in the renovation, so you're going to need the $450 plus the $150.
Plus the reno. Oh, because
Yes.
they're paying the renovation. So,
So you'll
$450
need
plus the $150 plus the $27.
Plus the 27, and plus you have holding costs, so your taxes, your insurance, your water and sewer, during the time that you hold it for those 6 months. So
you're looking at, maybe
is gonna be-
700 something thousand
Right.
you'd want to be able to sell this house for,
Right.
to have some type of profit.
150.
And what type of profit do you expect on a property like that?
So generally, like the way a lot of flippers analyze their deals is 70% of the ARV minus your repairs. It should be your maximum allowable offer.
What's ARV?
After repair value.
Okay.
So if you just want to throw out a random number, it's not worth this. But let's just say it's worth $1 million.
Yeah.
So you would do 70% of 1 million, which is 700,000,
Right.
minus your renovation of, let's just say it's 200,000 in this case,
Right.
gives you 500,000. 500,000 should be your a maximum allowable offer, MAO. So it's sort of a formula that a lot of flippers use to stay in line to make sure that there's going to be enough profit margin for them at the end of all of this.
So 70% of the maximum sales price is what your total budget for renovations and everything should be. Correct?
Right.
So if we're looking at this, we're already at 672 just between, and like we can see that right here, this portion. We're at 672 just between your down payment, the construction financing, the lending, the points, the interest, without accounting for something pops up that you didn't consider, right?
When it comes to this particular formula, you don't factor in the interest and everything. You just factor in the million minus the 70%, which is the 700,000 minus repairs.
Yeah.
But if you want to get a little bit more detailed, you can definitely look further into every single category.
Right. So how would you come up with a value of what you think this property would be worth?
Yeah, so yes. So now what you want to do is you want to figure out what's the ARV, the after repair value.
Yeah.
So this property in particular, I see that it's 3-bed, 2-bath. It doesn't have the square footage listed. So we need to find out what the square footage is. It's a single family residence built in 1900, 7,800 square foot lot. So you want to find properties within, let's say, a half-mile radius that are as similar to this property as possible.
Okay.
Not always the easiest thing to do, but you want to look at stuff that's also 3-bed, 2-bath minimum. Unfortunately, over here in particular, we don't have the square footage, so we won't be able to see exactly what it's at. But let's just say it's 2,000 square feet. So you want to look at other properties and what those are selling for in the area, and then at the same time, you want to see, is that property fully renovated? So after repair value. So you really want to see a fully renovated property of the ones that pop up over here, and what
it's 7-bed.
Yeah, and this one's also a multifamily. So you would want to go to home type, and you would want to deselect everything besides houses.
Okay.
So would you look at, so what you're saying is like look at properties that were renovated in the area.
Yes.
And see if they sold for what you think you might be able to sell that house for.
Right.
In Bloomfield.
In Bloomfield. So you're saying,
correct.
okay, so you find a house that obviously doesn't look exactly like that, but it's $850,000 house. It's sold, had the same square footage, same everything, but it's renovated.
Right.
Now you're saying to yourself, all right, this can be done because
Yes.
there's other homes in the area
Correct.
that are selling at that rate.
Correct. And what's great is if you do
great.
get a hard money lender to fund the deal, they most likely are going to require an appraisal. So they're going to almost have your back to a certain extent. Because
Right.
if the numbers don't make sense for them, they're going to decline on the deal and just be like, hey, we think that ARV on this deal is 700,000. So we're not going to lend it to you because it becomes a risk for them. So they want to make sure that their investment, which is the money that they're giving you, is going to be protected.
Got it.
Here we go. I mean, this looks a little nicer than the one that we saw. Square footage might be a little higher too. 888, still below that million we were using, right?
Right.
What, is it renovated?
It looked pretty renovated. I'll go to one that's maybe a similar size. I mean, most of these look like 2 stories versus our ranch.
Yes, and that's very important too. Is it a Cape Cod? Is it a ranch? Is it colonial? So you want to, of course, just trying to be as similar as possible to the property.
Okay.
But naturally, especially in the beginning, what's going to happen is you may be working with, let's just say, a realtor. So they'll help you do this full analysis. Because for someone doing this for a first time, I would say it would be extremely difficult to figure this whole part of it out. But if you have proper guidance, usually from another real estate investor or from a real estate agent, they'll help you do this whole analysis to figure out if it's going to be worth it. Naturally, of course, be wary because a real estate agent gets paid off of commission, so they may try to sway you in one direction.
Right.
So it's always best to do your own due diligence, but get all the information from them and then sort of dissect it from there.
Yeah.
If I had to take a guess based on what I'm seeing here, you're looking at a maximum of like 800
Right.
from the stuff around here, and more like 750 to 650.
But it looks like there's also a lot of opportunity. Like even that house right there, they're on 455.
Yeah.
Right. It's in a good area. It's right. Probably it looks like it's right outside of where Nutley is.
Yeah.
Man, this is like.
Listen, when we get off of this, you want to just buy this? I mean, it seems like it's.
I think we would lose our shirts from what Shariq's saying. Like, because how much do you think it would cost to rehab something like this? At least if we're saying 200 for that other one, you're in at now 655 plus your interest plus your mortgage. You're at maybe like another 60,000 on top of that. So 710.
Yeah, so you sell it for $810, you make $100,000, right?
Well,
That's what the real estate is, right? I mean,
yeah,
or
if
you
you
make
have no other
50,000.
costs.
Well, you have your closing costs as well.
Or
So
your
when you
contractor runs away.
and you have to pay a real estate agent generally when you sell the property. So they'll say, let's say 2.5%, or it could go up to 5%. So there's a little bit of extra cost that'll definitely add up where you just want to factor it into the equation.
So now, out of curiosity, what if you just buy the thing and you do like a basic rehab and then rented it? How do we find what we think the rental value on this would come out to?
So you can. So now instead, what you can do is instead of sold, you can type in for rent, and you can look for other properties in this area that are renovated. Maybe right there.
Right here.
Yeah, one of these.
Yeah, this looks pretty similar to the one we were looking at.
So this may be in a multifamily home.
And this is renovated.
But yeah, renovated, $2,800 a month. So yeah, you can get a general gist of at least what other people are asking. Not necessarily what it actually rented out for, but you can get that information as well.
Okay.
But at least most likely this is within the ballpark of what you may be able to get in regards of rent. And like I said, I don't know if this is a multifamily or a single family. It says floor 2, so.
It does look like.
But you can use this as an example.
Yeah, 3-bed, 2-bath, right? So 2,800 is one of them. We look around a little bit. This is maybe more.
That 3,300 one may be better because it's a whole house.
This
instead.
one? Yeah, okay. 3,300. It looks like this is pretty renovated too.
Yeah, it's in good condition.
Yeah.
Not renovated,
It's
but
looking
yeah,
like
it's
Joe's place from the inside.
So I mean, you obviously you have options, right? You have the ability to decide: do I want to sell it? Do I want to make it? I think last question that I would have is: you look at a property like that, and off the top of your head, you're saying, okay, I'm gonna hard lend it, renovate the entire place. What do you see yourself making? Right? You've been doing it for long enough. You have off the top of your head, you're like $40,000 minimum.
In regards to a fix and flip here, or
yeah, fix and flip. If we were to do this exact scenario, I mean, I don't know if that house you would actually purchase, but let's say you did. Do you have a number on the top of your head that you're like, I'll probably make between 30 and 40. That's the lower end. The best I would make is 100. Is it worth it for me to go in for that?
Using what, the 1 million
Bloomfield
ARV?
house. Yeah, the house we just started with.
Yeah, so I guess it all just depends on what it sells at. Like, I know that particular property, $495,000, is definitely not a good price to buy it at.
Now.
But if you sell it at that $1 million, you'll probably net $150,000 on it.
Because net $150,000.
Yeah, because you're
if it's sold for $1 million.
Yeah, because you bought it for $450,000, you spent another $150,000 in the renovation.
Yeah.
So you're already at $600,000. Then you're spending money for the interest and the holding costs. So let's just say you're at $650,000. Then you have your closing costs for everything. Actually, yeah. So you actually will net even more than that.
But you have to believe that the property will sell for $1 million.
Yeah, and in that case, it won't. And those deals would be way more difficult to find if it did have a $1 million ARV.
It could go for 9 based on what we're seeing. So
Right.
now you're looking at a $50,000 profit potentially if everything.
Right, you're in for $650,000, and then you have your realtor, you have your closing costs. You may end up being all in for $700,000, even if things go wrong, $750,000. So you're still clearing a good amount of profit.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, that's in 6 months. So, and I think the other thing to remember is that there's risk that's involved in this, right?
Yes.
Like you're not going into this with a foolproof, all right, I have the plan. I listened to Shariq. I'm going to make $150,000. Like that's not how any business works. If it was that easy, everybody would be doing it.
Right.
But I think overall, there's a lot of opportunity from a real estate standpoint. There's a lot of risks that are involved in it. And I think if you're, in a position where, let's say, flipping is something you wanted to do, there's a lot of factors to take into consideration.
Sure.
And if you find the right property in the right town with some of these numbers that come out, then you see. I mean, in my mind, even if you're going to go into real estate and you looked at it and you said, worst case scenario, I make $10,000 on this in 6 months, that's good. You learn what the contracting is like. You learn what the working with a hard lender looks like. You figure out what the sale is like working with a real estate professional, and then from there you move on and you work on something else. So you're going to get more money.
Yeah. So as a first time flipper, let's say, I would recommend trying to buy something as simple as possible. So we did a lot of condos and townhouses.
Right.
So you go in there, you don't have to gut anything. You go in, you change the kitchen, the bathroom, flooring, trim, paint, doors. You put it right back up on the market. Now, as long as you're buying the property at a good enough price, you're going to make some profit.
Right.
And those deals are fairly easy. They're quick. You may not make as much money as, of course, a single family house or a bigger deal, but it can get your feet wet.
Right.
And you can make a nice supplemental income by doing a fix and flip on the side. Naturally, and just like fundamentally, the hairier the deal, the more profit you can make. So if the property has, let's say, an oil tank, let's say it has mold, it has asbestos, it has lead-based paint, and you have to gut the place, naturally you're probably going to make more money because it requires more work.
Right.
And just for fun, I decided to check to see what would happen if we mortgage this thing out. So if you decide to hold it and we run a mortgage calculator based on the $700,000 you're going to be in for, and you leave no cash in. So let's say it is worth $1 million. You get a mortgage for $700,000. You now cash out everything you put in. So you have $0 in the deal. This would be your monthly mortgage, $4,200 based on this percentage rate, which is probably reasonable.
Sure.
Now we're looking at what the market rate is of 3,300.
Right.
So you're losing money on this thing.
You're losing money. And then in this formula, it's not calculating. Whenever I do a rental analysis, you want to look at vacancy. So you want to factor in, let's say, 5% for vacancy. You want to factor in something for repairs and maintenance because things are going to break naturally when tenants live there.
Sure.
You want to factor in CapEx. So once in a while, something big will break. For example, a roof or HVAC. It may be every 5 or 10 years, but if you're not holding reserve funds for that day, now all of a sudden you're coming out of pocket. So I think when it comes to rental properties, cash flow management is like extremely important because I see a lot of other real estate investors, they generally don't really have many reserves. And when something bad happens,
they're hiring a management company and that's sucking up all the excess. That would be their reserve.
Yep. So having proper reserves when it comes to at least rentals is like extremely important. So for every unit that we have, if we have a 3-family house, we try to keep at least $5,000 per unit in reserve. So if we have a 3-family house, minimum of $15,000 should be in an account at all times.
Oh wow. Yeah, and so then I also checked, what if you leave some cash in, and you leave you take a $500,000 mortgage, you leave $200K of your own money in this deal. In that case,
you're trading it for cash flow.
Sure.
You're trading in some cash flow, and you're maybe getting $500 extra.
And then what you can do is calculate a cash on cash return. So what's your amount that you have invested versus what's the net that comes in per year. And then you can figure out what's our cash on cash. Now, certain investors look for a minimum of 7% cash on cash return. Other investors, especially if they're a professional investor, they may be looking for something significantly greater than that. I think it depends if it's more of a passive involvement or if it's something that you're actively doing in regards to real estate and buying it, fixing it up, forcing appreciation, getting top dollar rents. But cash on cash return is a really good analysis to use to see if it has the metric that you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can go down a huge rabbit hole and go another hour.
We can keep going.
Yeah, but
so you'd make 3% best case, not accounting for a lot of other things. Probably, I think we could say we pass on this investment.
Oh, for
correct?
Sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely a pass.
It's a pass.
Yeah, but look, I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff that viewers can take away from this, especially from either getting into real estate or making that decision if it makes sense for them to start it. But understand the market, work with a mentor or a coach to kind of help you, guide you through some of those scenarios. Someone who has the experience, understand the risks and make decision from there. But I think a good point that we made is that it is not as easy as people think it would be to just get into a place and flip it, and then all of a sudden you're making millions of dollars a year. It takes a lot of time.
In fact, we picked the lowest priced property.
Yeah, in a very good area, and we lost money.
Especially in this market, it's become much more difficult.
Yeah, with the higher
So the
rates.
people who are getting the best deals are really people who are finding it off market. So they're going directly to the homeowner, whether it's through probate, someone passed away, divorce, foreclosure, or job loss, and they're dealing with someone who's motivated, may need to sell it for cash within 2 weeks time frame, and those people are picking it up off market before it even hits Zillow or before realtors even know about it. So what you're getting is sort of like, I don't want to say
the
bottom of the barrel.
aftermath of everything.
Yeah, like this is after plenty of people have maybe even passed up on the deal.
Right.
But is there still opportunity there? Yes, and I think you should explore every avenue, one being auctions, another being tax sale foreclosures, another being working with realtors, but definitely off-market deals is where majority of professional real estate investors are getting their deals from.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Good point. Shariq, thanks for taking the time with us.
Thanks for showing us how
it's definitely a cool first experience on the couch. We moved from the deduction desk to the deduction couch.
Exactly.
And found a different way to kind of approach real estate investing. And appreciate your time, and we'll definitely revisit this and talk a little bit more in the future.
Yes. No, thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, dude.
No, for sure.